Good day, poker peeps. My name is Sky from Smart Poker Study, and I'm happy that you chose to spend some study time with me. I'm here to help you make money in online poker by teaching you key strategies and action taking. So I really like episodes like this one today. Specifically, we're going to be talking about planning for the future. But I really like it when real life things kind of intersect with poker. They get my mind churning and give me a really good idea for a podcast episode. And something that happened to me in my life just really got me thinking about planning for the future and making good choices now so that you put yourself in winning situations later on. So that's what we're diving into with this episode. Now, in the episode that you're about to hear, I cover 6 different hands. We go through some planning, pre-flop and post-flop stages of these 6 different hands. I do my best in the audio to explain what's going on, but it really does help if you watch the hands play out. So go to the show notes page, smartpokerstudy.com/pod428. At the top of that page is the video version of this podcast, which is up on my YouTube channel at Smart Poker Study. The goal, of course, is that this audio podcast is enough for you to learn from and to help you visualize the hands and the strategies that I'm talking about. But of course, seeing the visual along with hearing my words, that might make it a little bit easier to learn from this episode. Once again, show notes page, smartpokerstudy.com/pod428. Okay, without further ado, we're doing this. Gambate!
Woohoo! I'm a college man! I won't need my high school diploma anymore! I am too smart! I am too smart! I am too smart! I am too smart! S-M-R-T! I mean S-M-A-R-R-T!
The idea for this podcast came from a food poisoning scare last week on Friday. In the morning, woke up and I wanted a BLT, a bacon, lettuce, tomato sandwich for lunch that day. So went to the freezer in the garage, pulled out a package of frozen bacon to cook for myself at lunch, right? My wife was going to work, the kids were going to school, so it was just me for lunch. Pulled it out of the freezer, but I left it on the counter next to the freezer in the garage. In my mind, I should have brought it in and put it in the fridge, right, to defrost in the fridge. That was the goal, but I left it behind for some stupid reason. 6 hours later, at roughly noon or 1 o'clock, right around there, I said, okay, it's time to make my BLT sandwich. So I go to the fridge, open it up, no bacon. Oh crap, where's the bacon? Didn't I pull it out? Went to the garage, found it right there on the counter. And I felt it, and it felt like kind of cold still, right? And I thought to myself, well, it should be safe. It's like 40 degrees outside. This bacon should be fine. The garage is warmer, right? Than outside. I thought it should be fine. So I said, I'm just going to cook it. It's fine. It's just bacon. It's not like chicken that's been left out. That was what was going through my head. So I'll be fine and I'll go ahead and cook it. I cooked it. I ate my BLT. Loved the sandwich. Extra bacon, of course, in a BLT, right? About a half pound of bacon. I used half of the package. But here's the thing. I've given myself food poisoning before. I left chicken out too long. I cooked it. I was the only one who ate it. Thankfully, the rest of the family didn't get food poisoning from it. But oh my God, if you've ever experienced food poisoning, it is some of the worst pain ever in your intestines, your whole nether region. You don't want to do anything. You can't even watch your favorite movie. I can't even put on Spaceballs and watch it because my mind, I just don't even want to think about anything. I just want to curl in bed and die. That's what it feels like, right? Well, when I cooked that bacon, I should have thought about that food poisoning I felt and suffered through before, because after cooking it and eating it, by about 3 o'clock or so, my mind started churning and thinking, oh my God, what if I gave myself food poisoning? What if I let that bacon sit out too long and the bacteria developed and I'm giving myself food poisoning? Oh my God. And I know that food poisoning can hit anywhere from 6 to 12, 18 hours later in that time frame. So from 3 o'clock, when I started worrying about giving myself food poisoning, I couldn't think about anything. I didn't even eat dinner that night. I cooked dinner for the family and I ate 1 or 2 bites, but I was so worried about food poisoning, couldn't eat. When it came time to go to bed about 9 o'clock, I couldn't sleep. I stayed up all the way until midnight, just laying in bed, trying to sleep. Fitful sleep all the way until 5 a.m. until finally it felt like, okay, it's been so long, I'm not going to get sick. But here's the thing. I should have seen it coming and made a better decision. That frozen bacon, my wife buys it from Costco, $15 5-pack, so $3 a pack, $3 a pound, something like that. I should have thrown it away, right? I should have realized that after eating it, I'm going to be worried for the next 6, 10, 12 hours afterwards. And I'm just not going to be able to think. I'm not going to be able to do anything because I'm just worried about getting sick. I'm worried about that pain, feeling that food poisoning pain again. So it would have been so much better. I should have seen all those anxiety issues coming, should have thrown that bacon away, just whipped out a new package, put it under water for 10 minutes, and it would have thawed out enough for me to cook it, right? And it would have been a $3 waste, that little bit of bacon. But I should have seen it coming, and that was so stupid. Now, you might be thinking, Sky, what does this have to do with poker? Well, really, it has everything to do with poker. Your decisions pre-flop affect what the situation you're in, and your decisions on the flop. Flop affects turn, river, and so on, right? It's not like, oh, I got king jack suited, I'm going to open raise. That's not it at all. Like that your mind should be thinking about more than just this instant right now. Sure, I got king jack suited. That's worthy of open raising in the cutoff, right? But what is that button player going to do? Does he like to 3-bet? Does he love to call? What about those two blind players? Most likely they're going to be the ones to call. But if that button player who loves to call, if he calls, whoa, that small blind player loves to 3-bet squeeze. My open might see a call and then face a 3-bet squeeze to which I'll have to fold. Like looking forward to the future, realizing that, like Maximus says in Gladiator, right? What we do now echoes in eternity. Well, what you do pre-flop echoes on the flop. Actually, it echoes later on the flop, right? Or pre-flop. Your open raise incentivizes the other players to do whatever they want, but they still have options to play before you even see the flop, right? So let's get to discussing about planning pre-flop. All right, so when it comes to pre-flop planning, a critical idea is if I enter the pot, what situation am I getting myself into? Because you're not just playing, like you can see there's a hand on the screen right now. I got pocket sevens in the cutoff. The MP decides to fold. Great, it's on me. Pocket sevens in the cutoff, no brainer open raise. No brainer, right? But let's use more of our brain, right? Let's make a brainer decision here. Before we open raise, right, who's likely to call? So look ahead at your other opponents. Well, this player 1, he calls 11%, only 1 out of 9. The player in the small blind, 33%, 1 out of 3. The player in the big blind, so far, 7 opportunities to call, hasn't called at all. So the most likely caller might be the small blind player, right? So start thinking ahead, thinking about who's going to enter the pot against you. Because sure, like I said, sevens are a great open raising hand, which I do. But now I've got 3 opponents, the button, the small blind, and the big blind. They have some kind of options available. They can fold, they can call, they can raise me right here, right? Another question you want to ask yourself before you raise, or ask yourself, if I raise, who's likely to 3-bet? Let's take a look at these players. The button player, seat 1 right here, he 3-bets at 11%. It's only 1 out of 9, but he's shown that he's capable of 3-betting in the past. The player in the small blind, he's 3-bet 1 out of 3 right here. The player in the big blind, no 3-bets yet. So these two players, the button and the small blind, at least based on their prior tendencies, small sample size, but they've shown the ability to 3-bet in the past. But here's an interesting thing. When you're looking to the future, you also sometimes want to think about what happened in the past. We opened raised with pocket sevens. You could see we folded. The smart HUD shows you this. I folded to a 3-bet after raising 1 time in the past, 1 out of 1 opportunities for 100%. The player that 3-bet me was this button player 1. He 3-bet me once. It was 1 out of 9 opportunities, and I folded that 1 time, right? So I'm thinking ahead to their tendencies, what's likely going to happen to their 3-betting. You also want to think about their post-flop tendencies. If the player on the button calls or on the big blind, hey, that's not so bad. So far on the flop, they fold 100%, 2 out of 2 and 1 out of 1. I have a pretty good bluffing opportunity set up for myself so far after raising if one of these two players calls, right? But here's the thing. Before you make your raise, make a plan for what you're going to do on the flop if opponents call and what you're going to do versus a 3-bet. Like I said, the button player 3-bet me in the past, and he comes in with the same size as before, 9 big blind 3-bet against me. both of the blinds fold. And I had this plan ahead of time. I've got the pocket sevens, but this guy 3-bet bluffed me in the past. I'm just going to stick it in his face right now. I'm not going to give him the opportunity. I'm not just going to call and then fold to his C-bet on the flop. With pocket sevens, I'm most likely check folding out of position on the flop, right? So what I decided to do is I'm just going to assume that right now, this 3-bet for 9 big blinds, the same situation as before. I open in the cutoff, he 3-bets, I fold. He's doing the same thing, trying to pick up a simple 3 big blinds on me. I say, screw you, buddy. I go in over the top, I shove, and he makes a quick fold. But I only made that play because I planned this out ahead of time. I knew I was in the same spot as before, and I'm just taking advantage of his tendencies right here. Now, if he happened to have a great hand like pocket kings, well, that's a bummer. I'm a 80-20 dog, or 20 to 80% dog right there, right? That's a bummer. But if he has ace, king, ace, queen, ace, jack, and decides to call, then hey, I mean, I got about a 50-50 chop right there. So I felt that he's folding most of his hands, 95% of his 3-betting hands, he's going to fold right here. I thought this was a very good bluff. But like I said, I planned ahead because I was looking to the future. Or I planned ahead of time because I was looking to the future before actually making this play. All right, so a second hand for planning pre-flop, right? We've got the pocket 8, same position in the cutoff right here. Both the EP players, EP and MP, fold. It's up to me. Now, pocket 7s, no-brainer, open raise. But right here, pocket 8s, also no-brainer, open raise. But we want to think ahead. Let's use our brain right now. Who's the most likely caller? Well, the button is an 11-11, not a likely caller. He hasn't called yet. The small blind is a 17/2. The smart HUD shows us this, and he's only called 14% so far. Probably not calling. But this player in the big blind, 77 big blind stack, 48/17, calls 56% of the time so far. Most likely he's going to call. So I know that he's my most likely caller. If I open raise, and I do, I make it 3 big blinds right here. But that's a great thing. If he calls, look it, he folds on the flop 75% of the time. That's an awesome spot to put myself in. I raise, he calls, I c-bet bluff, he folds. Easy pot on the flop, right? But let's see what happens here. The button folds. Remember, I made it 3 big blinds with pocket 8s in the cutoff. Button folds. The small blind decides to call. And that incentivizes this 48-17 big blind. He makes a 3-bet to 5 big blinds. Now, this is a min 3-bet squeeze, right? One of the great things about when you're playing poker, especially online poker, when action comes back to you and it's your turn to play, 3 buttons pop up at the bottom of the table. Those are your options. Those options are your friends. When he makes his 3-bet, the fold button shows itself. The call button and the raise button shows itself. Now it's up to you in the moment to make a plan to decide which is the best play. Should I fold my pocket 8s for 2 more big blinds with another player still to act in the small blind? Should I just call to see a flop in the best position against the 2 blinds? Or should I 4-bet? Now here's the thing. I know that if I call, I've only got pocket 8s. I'm most likely going to miss a set. That flop is going to come ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 9 high, and I'm often just going to fold if he decides to c-bet, right? So I call another 2 big blinds only to fold, I don't know, 80, 70% of the time on the flop, potentially, against a 3-better. What I like instead, remember, you got those options that pop up, fold, call, and raise. I got the pocket 8s. I'm in the best position. It's only 2 more big blinds. I don't like folding. I don't like calling either because, like I said, I'm going to fold on most flops. But what about raising? Is 4-betting a valid play here? And I say yes, it is. Because if I 4-bet and I show that I'm really interested in this pot, I have a strong hand, the small blind, the first caller, is probably going to fold. That's going to make me heads up with the big blind again. And once again, just like I said earlier, when he calls 2 bets, he folds versus c-bet 75% of the time. That's awesome. If I 4-bet right now, he's probably just going to call. And then I could just c-bet bluff on the flop, right? What an awesome play to make. So I made it to 9 big blinds. I didn't go over the top, make it 15. I figured 9 would be good enough to get the small blind to fold, and he did. And it's just enough to get that big blind to call with a really wide range, a range that he's very capable of folding on the flop. He just calls in the big blind. So the pot is 21 big blinds. I'm in position with pocket 8s. The flop comes down ace, 10, 7, rainbow. Loving this flop. My re-raise easily reps pocket aces, ace, king, ace, queen, pocket kings, queens, like really strong hands right there, right? He checks, giving me the perfect opportunity to c-bet bluff with my pocket eights. Sure, I have a showdown hand, but I don't want to see any other cards come. I'd rather just end this hand now, pick up the 21 big blind pot. So I bet 10 big blinds, roughly half pot, and boom, he folds. So my plan, by looking ahead to the future, I realized that 4-betting is going to put me in a better spot than calling. So I made the 4-bet and took down a nice pot because of it. Now, in the past few hand examples, you heard me mention the Smart HUD for Poker Tracker 4 and how I use it to understand my opponent's tendencies and then plan for the hand, make exploits against my opponents. Well, you can get the Smart HUD for yourself. It's the best HUD, my personal made Smart HUD, 16 elements to the HUD, 7 different custom pop-ups. Plus, it comes with a 75-minute webinar showing you how to use the Smart HUD. You can get it for yourself by going to smartpokerstudy.com/smarthud. And I have to thank these recent buyers of the Smart HUD: Alexander, David Cassidy, Travis Bowe, Brendan Rojas, Crawford Parrott, Michael Walker, Raymond Fairclough, Matthew Tomasiello, Matt Wires, George Skrypek, Joseph Restoro, Dalton Pester, Daniel Palis, Sebastian Rios, Salvatore Garozzo. I know, we're still going here. Renee Emel, Arno, Eric, Sergey, Timo Trema, Sean Gentilla, and Stephen Horvath. Thank you all so much. You went to smartpokerstudy.com/smarthud, saw what the HUD was all about, and you picked it up, and now you're dominating your opponents. I appreciate the support. All right, so another pre-flop area that we need to plan for is what's going to happen after we call, right? So in this hand, you can see I've got ace, queen offsuit in the cutoff once again. EP folds. MP decides to open raise. Now, the MP is a 26-26 player. Very aggressive. He's 3-bet at 20%. It's only 1 out of 5, but he hasn't made any calls pre-flop, and he's only raised first in 25% of the time, right? This guy loves playing hands. He probably has a wide range right here in the MP. And the Smart HUD tells me all this. I understand this player. That's why he's color-coded orange, loose, aggressive style player, right? Now, before you make a call, you want to think about, okay, if I call, who else will call? Take a look around. This guy calls 25%, 13%, no calls yet out of the big blind. So 1 or 2 other potential callers right here. So I might be going multi-way with an ace-queen. Not the end of the world. Ace-queen's a great hand, but maybe I'd prefer limiting those multi-way opportunities and just re-raise here to try to get this initial loose aggressive player heads up against myself, right? The other thing to ask before you call, if I call, who's likely to 3-bet squeeze? Because as you know, 3-bets are the bane of 2-bets. You hate facing them, whether you were the 2-better or you were the first caller, because you don't want to face that 3-bet squeeze, right? So before I make this call, I should look around and realize, whoa, I'm in the cutoff. The button player has position on me. He's 3-bet at 13%. It is only 1 out of 8. It's a small sample, but he's a 44-28 player. He's in the best position. He has a great opportunity to 3-bet squeeze. And I don't really want to face a squeeze. I mean, I've got ace-queen offsuit. That's good. But if I decide to call, I'm just going to end up folding on most flops when I don't hit any kind of a pair, right? I'd rather be the one putting the aggression against my opponents. Another player in the small blind, 100 big blind stack, 24-18. He's 3-bet in the past, 13%, 1 out of 8. He's capable of squeezing as well. So by calling here, I risk facing that 3-bet. But, sometimes you want to call just to under-rep your hand. Maybe the initial raiser will never put me on an ace-queen. So maybe that was my goal when I made this call right here. But really, I think 3-betting would have been better. What happened was I called, the button folded, the small blind squeezed to 16 big blinds, and everybody folded. Now, who knows what he had? Maybe he had pocket aces or kings and he wasn't going to fold, and if I 3-bet, he would have 4-bet. But I really like the idea. I would have been better off 3-betting rather than facing his squeeze and having to fold, because he made it such a big size. If I would have called that additional 16 or additional 13 big blinds, that pot would have been 36 big blinds. I only had 94 behind. He only had 87 behind. Less than a 3-to-1 stack to pot ratio. Really tough. I don't have much room to maneuver post flop. So I'm happy I folded versus that 3-bet, but I would have rather been the 3-better, putting the pressure back on the MP player, playing heads up and just going post flop with ace queen in the best position. Alrighty, so sometimes calling to set mine and risking facing a 3-bet is a totally valid play. In this hand right here, I've got pocket sixes in the cutoff again. The EP decides to fold. The MP open raises to just 2.4 big blinds. He's a 21-16 tight aggressive player. In the MP, he probably has a 12 to 15% open raising range. So on the tighter side, the best broadways, the best pairs, suited aces, things like that. I have pocket sixes. Now, I love the idea of set mining to just try to hit a set versus a tight aggressive player, because if I hit my set, there's a good chance he has 119 big blinds behind. I have 125. I'm going to be earning a lot of chips if I hit the set. So there's a lot of implied odds, all the reason in the world to call. But there's one reason to fold, and that's why it's critical to plan and look ahead to see, oh, if I call, who else can call? If I call, who can 3-bet me? Well, boom, on the button, an 85-62 player. Yeah, the smart HUD is telling me I have a maniac in position on me. He's 3-bet so far 43% of the time, 3 out of 7 opportunities. I'm pretty sure that my call is going to elicit a 3-bet with anything decent that he has. Anything that he wants to play, he's going to 3-bet. But I think it's worth the risk of facing his 3-bet and being forced to fold. And that's my plan too. If he 3-bets to any reasonable size, I'm just out of there. I'm not going to set mine versus a short stack. The implied odds just aren't there, right? So he decides to 3-bet and he makes it 11 big blinds. Now, making it bigger like this, it's actually a good indication that he has a very strong hand at this point, because maniac players who 3-bet a ton, they're going to go smaller with their bluff, 7, 8 big blinds, maybe 9. 11 totally reads for strength. Everybody folds. I fold as well. I could have called to set mine versus a strong range, but here's the thing. He only has 62 big blinds behind. If I call, that flop's going to be 26 big blinds. It's going to be hard to get him off. I'm probably just going to check fold most flops. I'd rather just exit. So sometimes it's totally cool to make a call pre-flop, but still look ahead and plan for the other players who could 3-bet squeeze you. Alrighty, so now it's time to talk about flop, turn, and river planning, that post-flop part of the game, right? You always want to think about what's that next street going to look like. When you're pre-flop, you think about the flop. Flop the turn the river. Always think about that. You also want to think about your opponent's tendencies, and that's one of the reasons why I play online poker. I use my smart HUD for Poker Tracker 4. Absolutely love how the HUD gives me statistics on my opponent's tendencies, so I have a good read on what they're generally capable of doing, and then I make plans to exploit those plays, as you will see in this hand right here. You also want to think on the flop, oh, what turn cards are good or bad for me or for his range? On the turn, think about what river cards are good or bad for you. Those are also going to help you make better decisions in the now to avoid tough spots in the future. So let's take a look at this hand. We have 8-7 offsuit, 6 max, EP folds, MP, 18/16, tight aggressive player. He just min raises to 2 big blinds. The cutoff folds, the button folds, small blind folds. It's on me. Now, if you've ever seen my KISS cash game ranges, you know that 8-7 offsuit is outside of the ranges. I generally don't call. But I'm planning to the future. I'm looking ahead. Look at this player right here. He c-bets the flop 67% of the time. 4 out of 6. It's a pretty good tendency that's saying that, hey, he loves c-betting flops, right? Which means he has a lot of bluffs in his c-bets right there. Oh, but look at this on the turn. So far, his c-bet is 0 out of 2, 0% on the turn. Super turn honest player. So my plan right now, like his stats give me a very easy plan. I'm going to call flop, and then as soon as he checks turn, boom, I'm going to bet river as a bluff, right? Because 8-7 offsuit, most likely I'm going to have to bluff to win the pot, you know? So I decide to call in the big blind with 8-7 off. I give the 18-16 player position against me. Flop comes down ace, 8, 3, rainbow. So I flopped second pair on an ace high board. I'm going through with my plan right here. I have some showdown value, so check calling is absolutely fine. But I want to basically just utilize my plan against him. I check, and now he comes out for 1/3 pot, 1.5 big blinds into the 4.5 big blind pot. Smells like weakness. I have a decent showdown value hand, but I see no reason to raise right now because he's displayed his turn honesty in the past. I'd rather just call this small bet with showdown value, and then when he checks the turn, I can assess on the river, right? So I decide to call. The pot on the turn is now 7.5 big blinds and a 5 hits. Doesn't help me, probably doesn't help his range at all, right? I would have been scared on a king, queen, a jack, a 10, kind of like a high card on the turn because he easily has those in his bluffing range on the flop, right? But that 5 isn't necessarily scary. I might check call another small 1/3 pot bet, right? Even though he's turn honest, if he bets small again, it could be weakness. He could double barrel with like a king high or a queen high hand, right? So after the 5 hits, I check, and he bets now 5.4 big blinds into the 7.5 big blind pot, roughly 70%, somewhere right around there. This guy means business. He has an ace. He loves his hand right now. Now, you could say, Sky, you have some showdown value. Even if you put him on an ace, you have a potential, you have an 8-7 with a pair of 8s. You could hit a 7 for 2 pair and 8 for trips. Yeah, sure, I have those, but that's only 5 outs. It only hits 10% of the time on the river. I need mathematically, and Poker Tracker 4 shows this, to call 5.4 to win a total pot of what will be 18.3 big blinds. I need 30% equity. I only have a 10% chance to improve my hand. Screw that, I am out of here. So I had my plan in place, and I didn't follow through with my plan because he went against his tendencies. I'm paying attention to those HUD stats, look into the future. I know he's turn honest. He bets 70% pot right now. He loves his hand. Super easy fold because I planned for this ahead of time. Alrighty, another example of flop, turn, and river planning right here. I've got the queen 8 suited on the button. EP folds. It's a 6-max game, but there's one player missing. EP or MP folds. The cutoff limps. Now, this player is a 29/10. I know this player, super mega fish. He limps 22% of the time, limps calls 57% of the time. So when I have my queen 8 suited, I don't want to limp behind. Like, I always want to be the aggressor because look at this player. He folds flop 24%. Folds turn versus c-bets 14%. He loves calling, hates folding. If I hit anything good with the queen 8 suited, I can go for a lot of value versus a player who hates folding. But it also means I'm probably not going to be bluffing because, hey, he does not like to fold. Why would I bluff him? I'm just trying to put myself in a value situation versus this limpy fish. So I decide to min raise. I only go 3. I only have the queen 8 suited. I'm kind of thinking, I just want to be the pre-flop raiser, get to the flop, isolating this cutoff fish, but I don't want to commit too many chips right now. So I go smaller than I usually would, but I make it 3, and it works. The blinds both fold, and the limper decides to limp call, making that pot 7.5 big blinds on the flop. I got queen 8 in position against him. Now, the flop comes down Jack, Jack 4 with 2 clubs. I have the queen 8 of hearts, so I don't have a flush draw at all. So I basically whiff this board. I have 1 queen overcard. I have an 8 with a couple of jacks. I guess I have a backdoor straight draw and 3 outs to an overpair queen, but I don't have much at all, right? But this player, who c-bets the flop 85%, when it comes to donk betting out of position, the smart HUD tells me this. He donk bets 21% on the flop, 4 out of 19. Totally capable of bluffing flops. And he donk bets 1 into 7.5. And I just smell super weakness right here. I'm not necessarily calling to try to hit a queen or an 8. I mean, that's good. If I hit a queen or an 8 on the turn, those are good cards for me. I'll be able to now bet if he donk bets again 1 big blind, or bet if he checks for value, that kind of a thing. But I'm just keeping myself in this pot versus a total fish who is displaying weakness right now with the 1 big blind donk. So I call with my queen 8. The turn pot is 9.5 big blinds. Jack, Jack 4 deuce with 2 clubs. I've got the queen 8. Now he donk bets again on the turn for only 2 big blinds into a 9.5 big blind pot. I still, once again, suspect total weakness. The plan is just to call, and hopefully I hit a queen or an 8 for some value on the river. But if not, I'm just going to bet when he checks on the river. If we take a look at another stat, like I said, we're always looking to the future, right? His river bet is only 15%, 4 out of 27. He doesn't bet rivers that often. So if he bets big on the river, I can make an easy fold. If he checks, which I suspect he'll do, I can bet to take it down. I call The river pot is 13.5. It's an ace on the river. And he checks to me. Awesome. I guarantee, I know this player. If he had an ace, he would bet for value. He does not have an ace. I come in for what looks like just a value bet. Like I had an ace the whole way. I hit the ace on the river, bet half pot on the ace, and he folds. But I basically just utilized a good board card, the ace on the river, right? As well as I just suspected weakness. So I just stayed in to give myself the chance to bet when he checked, and it worked. But it all came about just because of planning. I guarantee I wasn't just calling one big blind on the flop for no reason, calling two on the turn for no reason. No. I had that reason. Bet when he checks on that river, which he's likely to do. Alrighty, so I have done enough talking. It's time for you to take action. The first thing, please give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, if you've learned a little something from it. The second thing, I want you to take action and play with purpose. Over the next 5 days, play just 1 or 2 tables per day. But your goal is to plan for right now, plan for the future. Pre-flop, plan for the flop. Flop, plan for the turn. Your goal is to plan every single hand that you play. Pre-flop, ask yourself, what situation am I getting to? If I call, what's going to happen for the rest of the hand? If I call and see the flop, what's going to happen there? How can I exploit my opponent? Plan ahead for the future. Post-flop, what's the next street going to look like? What is my opponent capable of doing on the next street? What cards do I want to see? What cards would I hate to see? All that jazz. Force yourself to plan every single hand that you play over the next 5 days, 1 to 2 tables at a time. Now, you're also going to study with purpose. Over the next 5 days, go through your database in Poker Tracker 4 and find 10 hands per day that you're going to review. Some big losers, some big winners as well, because you're going to learn from some of those winning hands, but you also might find that you made a mistake here or there in those winning hands as well. You want to find hands that went to showdown, big winners and big losers, like I said, because you want to see what your opponent had through the street. So you want to see that showdown. As you're reviewing those hands, plan each street. If you find yourself calling with ace-jack suited in the cutoff, ask yourself, oh, why didn't I 3-bet? What could have happened on the flop if I had 3-bet? If I 3-bet with ace-jack, would they have just folded and I would have won the hand right there? I don't know. That's up to you. Ask yourself those questions. Figure out what you missed in the hand, what mistakes you made. Take note of those mistakes in your poker journal, and that's going to help you turn yourself into the player that you want to be.